It doesn't take much to spook the markets. If Janet Yellen passes wind, look out. There goes the Dow Jones. If we actually have a sustained crisis, there will be no coming back from it for an extended period. Central banks always react too softly, too slowly, and too late. They are blindsided, just like the investors left holding on to the scraps. You came here for the truth. Today I want to get into this particular indicator. I'll show you many others. Let's begin with this. Rises of a few tenths in the unemployment rate have typically been followed by recessions. Look at this, going back all the way to 1960. You can see that with the orange line, that would show you the increase, marginal increase in the unemployment rate. That is the fake rate that we see. Always follows with a recession. Look at this, every single time following with a recession to different degrees, but it's just showing you that indicator every single time. And look, just previously, we had a small uptick in the amount of unemployment that there was, and right away there was a recession. And that's very clear. This is a very good indicator to use to determine, are we on the precipice of a recession? And there are many indicators which are piling up which show that, but unemployment, their fake unemployment rate, is very low. It's subdued at this time. So we'll see what happens with that. Keep your close eye on this particular one. I think it could be interesting. Of course, they could play around with the unemployment rate, but ultimately, central bankers, the central planners, they don't really react in time. If this actually started to happen, they wouldn't be able to react in time. They never do. So let's see how it all unwinds. This article here is talking about Venezuela. It's actually quite heartbreaking to read through. I'll just cover a few points from it. Essentially what we have is different stories, different people, and they talk about the hardships that they're encountering at this time. Most people spending their money to fend off hunger, and that's how dire the situation has become. It even talks about this lady having to ration the amount of toothpaste that she uses. She said, I would always brush my teeth morning and night. Can't do that anymore, so I have to do so just in the morning. And this is just one example. It goes through talking about the people who can only eat a maximum of 2 times a day. That's it. That's all the money they can afford to purchase on food. Such a basic thing. It talks about the lineups that people are experiencing, hours and hours to get in a line and hoping that they'll get what they need. Simple things like bread, pasta, wheat, just to make their ingredients for their dishes so that they can live. So this is the difference, where you have some people in the world making so much money, and yet you have other people who are in such poverty. And there is that chasm between the rich and the poor. It's evident in places like the US, for example, where you see the average home sale in Manhattan at $2.19 million. Average apartment in Manhattan, $2.19 million. At the same time, you have people that are in extreme poverty. Right in front of those buildings, there will be homeless sitting there begging as the people walk out. I mean, this is what has happened. Anyway, let's move on here. When it comes to credit, Americans are faring better than ever. The FICO scores have moved up to 700 now, and according to Drudge Report, he's claiming that this is all because America is great again. I see what he's doing with that. However, we know the truth, and that is a lot of the bad credit was wiped off of these credit reports, and as a result, it has made everybody's credit look better. But that's really not the case. They just changed the way that it's reported. This is no different than the unemployment rate. It's no different than the inflation rate and every other rate they decide to give us. look, if they're going to play around with the numbers, it's not really truthful. How do we trust it? So this is another one of those examples. I just want to switch gears for a moment. What we see here is that every so often there is a new monetary system. It's a fact. This has happened all throughout history. They've gone on for shorter periods of time, some longer periods of time, and different countries will have their own empires. Okay, that's the way it is. That's the way it's always been. Now we are moving into the era of the supranational entities. And I do believe that after the dollar standard, we will have something along the lines of the IMF's SDR. I don't know what it's going to be exactly. I don't know how it will be implemented, but I do believe that we will face a crisis in the near future at some point, and they will come out and they will bring to us a new monetary system. But you as an individual, you're still going to be using your dollars, your euros, whatever it might be, but it will be backed by this international currency. And that's the way that they'll do it. People don't know the difference. They don't care. As long as they can continue to watch TV, they're fine. As long as I can watch my sports, as long as I can watch my television, Kim Kardashians, then I'm fine. And that's usually what happens. The complacency will allow this to occur. This I thought was pretty interesting. This is from 30 years ago. From The Economist magazine, get ready for a world currency. And that is something very telling. You know, they choose the date here, 2018. They say that 30 years into the future, we're going to have some sort of international currency. And they talk about a lot of what I talk about. Unfortunately, I had never read this prior. I just came up with this Economist magazine recently. But it's just interesting to note that 30 years ago they were talking about that. This is something that's being discussed in the alternative media and even in the mainstream media to some degree, that this could very well happen. So interesting to say the least. I thought I'd bring that to you. Home prices return to the pre-crash peaks, but not when adjusted for inflation. We're looking at the U.S. National Home Price Index. It's pretty interesting to see the way it is when you think about things in real terms or with the inflation adjusted terms versus nominal. So you saw the housing prices rise, subprime crisis happens, it takes a little dip downward. And if this was Canada or Australia, New Zealand, you would see it come down just like fading and then this sort of directly straight line upward. But anyway, so you see this dip that came down and things have definitely risen since. Not all areas. You see some areas which have declined continuously, but we've seen the prices come back up. Then you compare that to the inflation adjusted home prices and suddenly you get a different picture because the prices still haven't risen to their previous levels. It's interesting to look at things related in a different way, not just looking at, for example, what is the price of gold today, and well, I might say, let's say 1200, that's US dollars. What about if I measure it in Canadian? What about in Japanese yen? What if I measure it in Bitcoin? Or what if I measure it in wheat? You get a totally different picture depending on what you measure it in. It's pretty interesting. This here is the S&P Department Store Index. Look, if I was an investor going to get into something, I wouldn't be department stores. It wouldn't be retail at all. You are seeing this dying, and it will be a trend that continues for the foreseeable future. They have to get into new avenues or they have to shut down. That's just the way it is. It's a simple matter of fact. Online retailers like Amazon are going to destroy a lot of these traditional retailers. The stores are too large, the real estate is too expensive, and ultimately they don't have the profit that they once did. They're being undercut, they're being basically eviscerated. And then, last but not least, see this all the time. Something like this occurs. Officials at an Army chemical and biological storage and testing facility did not follow protocols while tracking inventories of sarin, a dangerous nerve agent, according to the recent Inspector General report. Oops, a little bit of this extremely dangerous chemical was released. How many times do we have to read about this? I just discussed it actually recently, where we had some of these bioweapons that just happened to escape the facility that they were in, and they ended up in a completely different area where the apes were, and it just shows you how lax the safeguards or supposed safeguards are. Now, you're thinking for a second, how did it escape? How did this happen? Well, think about how stupid this is. Some of the packages were shipped by commercial carriers such as FedEx. When you have something like sarin, an extremely dangerous chemical, and you ship it using FedEx, I mean, I don't think they should be doing work on these biological weapons at all. They're testing them, they're creating them, and then they find a way to have them release into the public. Oops, accidentally. Well, at the very least, if you're going to do it anyway, at least have some sort of special means of transporting it from one area to another. Don't use FedEx. They're not ready for that kind of thing. They're delivering, random boxes of things, all different types of things, not sarin. That's ridiculous. I mean, come on. You have to believe that that is done intentionally. That can't just be stupidity. I can't believe it. I won't believe it. People are stupid sometimes. You can't be that stupid. I'm sorry. If you found this video informative, please give me a thumbs up. If you think I'm stupid, give me a thumbs down. If you hate my face, give me a thumbs down. This is the only channel, by the way, where you actually get encouraged to give a thumbs down. Last but not least, if you found the video informative, I know you will find my books, The Money GPS, and my new release, Global Economic Collapse, even more informative. The first book is more about the foundational aspects. It has the 4 asset classes and how to profit from them, whereas the new book takes on familiar concepts, but I get into earning income, reducing your monthly expenses, and what I call the Money GPS strategy. You can flip through these books at Amazon. The links are in the description, so definitely check them out. If you're interested in some more free information, you can take a look at my website, themoneygps.com. Take care. I just wanted to point out to those who are still here, if you are supporting me through either Patreon, PayPal, or Bitcoin, I really want to extend my thank you to you. I think about you guys all the time. I'm just so appreciative of it and just want to say thank you. I think of that every day to say thank you, and I try to give as much thanks as possible. But please know that every day I think of that and how the support that I get, and thank you. That's all. Take care.